Hammer Horror's most prolific bit player, Michael Ripper appeared in 34 films for the company. Some say 35, but as far as I can find out, his appearance in The Man Who Could Cheat Death was left on the cutting room floor. He appeared in crime dramas.
I've got some stuff that might interest you.
War films.
Commanding officer wants to see you in 15 minutes, sir.
A lot of comedies.
What do you think?
I should have it inside, sir.
Yes, that's what I thought.
And a couple that we're not going to dwell on. But we're sticking to the horror films. Through these appearances, Ripper has become almost as familiar to cult film fans as the stars behind whom he stood, but is it fair to call him a bit player? There are a few brief appearances, the cabbie in The Phantom of the Opera.
Hello!
In The Lost Continent, he has abandoned ship long before the monsters appear.
Oh, it's illegal carrying explosives on a whole tub like this.
While in Rasputin, the Mad Monk, Ripper is merely redubbing actor Bartlett Mullins.
You ought to go to St. Petersburg, to the court. Tell the Tsar what to do.
That distinctive raspy voice was the result of a thyroid operation that more or less ended his stage career. But these parts are outweighed by strong supporting roles. Michael Ripper was always more than just a face in the crowd. Ripper's first appearance for Hammer was in 1948's The Dark Road, and he had made another 4 films for the company by the time Hammer discovered horror with 1955's The Quatermass Experiment.
You can't escape it. Maggie, look!
The film's success prompted a quick follow-up in the shape of X the Unknown.
Very good.
Ripper's first Hammer horror, playing Sergeant Harry Grimsdyke.
What's going to happen, Sarge?
I'm going to kick your head in if you don't get it down. That's what's going to happen.
Quatermass 2 followed in 1957.
I couldn't be better. Do you know what they're paying unskilled labour?
Not the last Hammer film to find Ripper behind a bar, and the role of Ernie is an oddly prescient one, as he soon joins a mob marching not on a castle, but on a secret experimental facility.
They're moving in.
It's a typical Ripper role. Stalwart, working class, making the most of every line.
There's something dripping.
Quatermass 2 is a powerful and intelligent thriller, and these sci-fi horrors did well for Hammer. But something bigger was just around the corner. 1957's The Curse of Frankenstein was the film that changed everything for Hammer, with the following year's Dracula solidifying their horror credentials. Michael Ripper wasn't in either, but he was in the immediate sequels to both, starting with The Revenge of Frankenstein.
Baron. Well, shall we get any more for him?
He's not in it for long, but he does get perhaps the best line in the film.
It's a priest. We go ahead.
His appearance in The Brides of Dracula is even shorter, but just as memorable.
Oh, I thought you was a dead.
Amazingly, the grave robber in The Revenge of Frankenstein is Ripper's only appearance in a Hammer Frankenstein film.
I don't like it.
He's better represented in the Dracula franchise, but we'll come to that.
A full moon. It will soon be as bright as day.
The Curse of the Werewolf was another classic Universal monster resurrected by Hammer, the title role played by Oliver Reed in his first lead role. The film finds Ripper in familiar surroundings.
It was no ordinary wolf, gentlemen.
It does sometimes seem that if he's not serving the drinks, then he's drinking them. This is one of a catalogue of drunks in Ripper's Hammer career, others of which we'll get to. Thrown into jail for, one assumes, public drunkenness, Ripper finds himself cellmates with Reed. Dying is another thing that Ripper does a few times for Hammer, but perhaps not as often as you might think. Although in this case, very much so. If there is one role for which Michael Ripper is known, it's landlord. And having missed out on Dracula Prince of Darkness, he returns to the Dracula series with 1968's Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, playing the most landlordly of his landlords. Despite a fair amount of screen time, Max does not play a huge role in the plot, dispensing worldly wisdom to hero Paul.
The truth? Oh, what do you want with that?
And adding a little comic relief.
Girls. Unreliable, the whole lot of them.
But he makes the tavern feel like a happy home, having a drink and a laugh with his clientele. A stark contrast to the other tavern that features in the movie, that which sits in the shadow of Dracula's castle. The malign influence of Dracula there is underlined by the existence of Max's tavern, filled with a bonhomie personified by Michael Ripper.
Hello, Maria! Goes on here about vampires and such like.
If there are 3 roles for which Michael Ripper is known, then it's landlord, policeman, and drunk. Dracula Has Risen from the Grave gave us the first. Its sequel, Taste the Blood of Dracula, gives us both of the next 2.
Oh?
But rather than a swaying, hiccuping cliché, Ripper's Inspector Cobb is a surreptitious drunk.
I'm sure Mrs. Hargood wouldn't want you to leave without a little refreshment.
I won't while I'm on duty, sir.
We never actually see him drink, but the red face and very slight slur.
Son hates his father, he's hot-blooded, they quarrel, and the son loses his temper.
Leave us in no doubt, making Cobb a person rather than just an inspector. He's only in a couple of scenes, far fewer than Max in the previous film, but I think he's the more interesting character.
We've got him locked up, safe and sound.
Ripper seldom got much screen time, but he made the most of what he had.
Well, hello, matey.
1962's The Pirates of Blood River features another of Ripper's drunk roles.
Correct.
As treacherous pirate Mac,
Drop the gun.
alongside Christopher Lee.
Captain.
The film proved an unexpected hit, and Hammer embarked on a series of swashbuckling films, including The Devil Ship Pirates and The Scarlet Blade.
Get to your work. Everybody, get your work.
Both featuring Ripper. But the pick of the bunch is Captain Clegg, also known as Night Creatures, this time alongside Peter Cushing.
Here, just like old times.
Despite the Marsh Phantoms, this isn't really a horror film, but we wanted to include it because it's a Hammer film that doesn't get the attention that it deserves, and because it's a great role for Ripper. As retired pirate and coffin maker, Jeremiah Mipps.
Came in this morning. I haven't had time to touch him up yet.
It has the comedy you expect from Ripper,
Yes, these chilly evenings are good for business. And if you lot were to get lost on the marshes, it'd be even better.
but also action and pathos. All these films are desperate attempts to create a land-based pirate story because Hammer couldn't afford to go to sea, but who cares? Captain Clegg in particular is such an enjoyable film that you barely even notice that it clearly inspired Carry On Dick.
And the cockiest layabout of all was one Richard Turpin, commonly known as Big Dick, on account of the size of his gun.
Ripper's final appearance in the Dracula series was also his last Hammer horror, 1970's Scars of Dracula.
We know where the evil lies.
Not Hammer's best Dracula film. Arguably one of their worst, but from the point of view of the Ripper fan, it has two things to recommend it. Firstly, he starts out behind the bar.
May we have something to eat, please?
Could I'll get you some soup and some cheese.
Then leads a march on Dracula's castle, leaving the place in flames.
Enough! That's enough! We're going back!
Which is exactly what he did in Quatermass 2, an extraordinary coming together of two very different films. But in Quatermass 2, that's the end of the film. Here, it is only the beginning. The other thing that makes Scars of Dracula stand out in Ripper's CV is that this is not just another barman.
Told you never to open that door after dark.
It's a barman who once stood up and lost everything, and now just wants to protect his own.
It's nothing to do with us.
A good man in a bad situation, and Ripper projects that in every scene.
You can go to hell as far as I'm concerned.
This is why we remember Hammer's bit players and not those from so many other movies. They always gave a performance. The Pirates of Blood River and The Scarlet Blade were both directed by John Gilling, one of Hammer's best directors, and one who genuinely admired Ripper as an actor. Hammer could always find a role for Ripper, but no one else cast him better, and the top 3 films on our list are all directed by Gilling, starting with sometimes forgotten amongst the bigger names, The Plague of the Zombies is one of Hammer's best films. Ripper plays local copper Sergeant Swift, investigating the strange deaths that have been occurring with the help of Andre Morell's Sir James Forbes.
We can manage this on our own, Sir James. Why don't you wait inside where it's warm?
Nice little comment on the aristocracy, but also on Ripper's place in the company.
Righto, let's get on with it.
I'll do the spade work, sir. You're wanted in a more exciting scene. Swift is a great example of the Michael Ripper school of character acting. He's mostly there for local exposition.
Why has it been allowed to fall into decay like this?
There was a lot of accidents, miners killed and maimed.
But Ripper takes the sympathetic notes of John Bryan's script
My boy was one of the first to go, sir.
and builds them into his portrayal. Look at his expression at the end of this scene.
Put him in the cell, Constable.
He's frustrated, uncertain. Swift could easily be the standard obstreperous policeman. That's all that the plot requires. But Ripper makes him more.
Excuse me, Allan.
Although Plague of the Zombies is Gilling's best film for Hammer, we've ordered this list more by best role for Ripper, and many would say that The Mummy's Shroud gave him his best Hammer role.
Is there anything I can get for you, Mrs. Preston?
Yes, you can order me some beer. Make sure it's cold.
Very good, sir.
This was Hammer's third Mummy film, and Ripper has an unforgettable role in the first,
10 foot tall he was, swathed in bandages.
and a best forgotten one in the second. Gilling was never happy with the project, but he certainly did right by Ripper.
There is only one suite available at this hotel, Mr. Preston, but I have secured it for you and Mrs. Preston.
Longbarrow is the long-suffering secretary of the odious Stanley Preston, a snivelling little yes-man.
Have you arranged that?
Oh, yes, sir. 10 o'clock sharp. Sharp? Oh, I didn't mean that for you, Mr. Preston. I merely put that out so that you shouldn't be kept waiting.
Whom Ripper makes the most sympathetic character in the film.
Oh, what a terrible thing to do.
His expression when Preston is embellishing press accounts of his exploits is poetry.
Twice I had to hold them at gunpoint.
As is his embarrassment at having mentioned the facilities in front of a lady.
I'm afraid there's no convenience. So sorry, Mr. Preston.
But his best moment is the contrast between learning that Preston will take him out of Egypt.
Are you going to take me with you, sir?
All right, you can book a passage for yourself as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Preston.
And chagrin at finding out that this is no longer the case.
Are you no longer going to take me with you, sir?
No.
Oh. Well,
It's hard to tell if he is more scared at his fate or hurt at how little his employer cares. Longbarrow is the epitome of the little man so ground down into his place that he thinks it is all he deserves.
there is a ship first thing in the morning. They like the passengers to be on board by midnight, sir.
Very well. Telephone me as soon as you book the passage.
It's a sad but touching portrayal, and when I started writing the script for this video, I confidently placed it at number 1. Until I rewatched The Reptile.
Why, my brother lived there.
He also died there, Mr. Spaulding.
Made back-to-back with The Plague of the Zombies and released alongside Rasputin the Mad Monk, The Reptile was part of Hammer's mid-decade gambit to get its finances back on an even keel. And while it doesn't reach the heights of The Plague of the Zombies, for me, it has Michael Ripper's best performance in a Hammer film.
Oh, Mr. Spaulding, I've got your luggage in the back there. Old Garnsey brought it down from the station for you. Sure you'd like to buy him a drink for his trouble?
It's another barman, seen here beside George Woodbridge, another great Hammer character actor in his last performance for the company. But Tom Bailey is also one of the leads. In fact, one of the heroes. But a very Ripper hero.
I'll put on the kettle.
He's the one who makes the cocoa. The one the heroine runs to when the real hero has been bitten by the monster of the title.
Tom, help me, please.
He's a workaday hero. You know he won't get the credit or top billing, but he does the job. What Gilling has done is simply to make a typical Michael Ripper character into the hero.
Oh, I've seen too many dead ones to be afraid of him.
And you care more about that character than you would about the real hero because you genuinely don't know if he's going to make it.
I want to spend the rest of my days here and die here in my bed. Not be found out there on the moor.
Nice though all this is, my real reason for choosing this film is the performance. Michael Ripper does come in for criticism of his acting, that it's too big, too over the top. But here...
They don't like strangers in these parts. I don't exactly know why, but they don't. They're a funny lot.
Tom Bailey is wonderfully underplayed. Ripper giving the performance that is right for the role. A big character gets a big performance. Here, we get something altogether different, exemplified in the scene in which he reburies the body of a friend dug up for examination.
Sorry, old lad. I won't disturb you again.
Simple, quiet, touching. It's proof, if proof were ever needed, that Ripper was more than Hammer's mascot. He was a fine character actor who elevated the films in which he appeared. We've obviously narrowed our focus for this video. Ripper had an equally diverse career outside of Hammer, but it is those films for which he is remembered.
That was 3, you thieving ditch digger.
And not just by audiences. In 1996, opening a Hammer retrospective at the Barbican, Christopher Lee led an ovation in Ripper's honour. Film history is full of Michael Rippers, the faces you half recognise, the jobbing actors who seem to be in everything. They do the same job for half the gratitude and a fraction of the money, and it's nice to be able to pay tribute to one of the greats. Ripper's last appearance for Hammer was in the big screen version of TV sitcom That's Your Funeral, appropriately dealing with a coffin.
It's back again, that stiff from France.
Oh, I thought we'd said goodbye to that.
It's a dire film, but Ripper still gives it his all.
What body?
If this video introduces one person to the name of an actor they've probably seen countless times, then I consider it time well spent. Thanks for watching, and as always, special thanks to our Patreon supporters who make these longer videos possible. Do you have a favourite Michael Ripper film? What other bit players deserve to be better remembered? Let us know in the comments below.